This clip is brought to you by SaveWithConrad.com.
WWE.com reported that New Japan and WWE officials met at the offices last Thursday. From the article, quote, during the brief cordial meeting, both sides discussed possible business ventures in the future between WWE and New Japan Pro Wrestling, the largest wrestling promotion in Japan. Wade would say this boils down to John Laurinaitis having connections with the New Japan office and Simon Inoki following up on his meeting with Laurinaitis that occurred several months ago. There had been two previous face-to-face meetings between the two sides, one at the WWE's offices and the other at an NWA show this summer in California. Earlier this year, TNA and New Japan had a working agreement that included some appearances by Tanahashi and Jushin Liger, but that relationship has now all but dissolved. And there were several instances of miscommunication. And after the headaches of dealing with international travel issues with the World X Cup, TNA just stopped working with international promotions for pay-per-views for the time being. So now the door's open for WWE and New Japan to continue an informal talk. And supposedly both sides are talking several times per week, but it's usually just comparing notes and not necessarily discussing a formal agreement. Simon Inoki, who's the president of New Japan, not Antonio Inoki, is trying to establish the company's brand name overseas. And they went to Italy, which is a crazy hotbed for wrestling at the time. And in 2005, they were working with WWE on trying to create an audience to promote the brand, wrestlers, and product lines. Of course, the WWE at this point was in virtually every country that had TV. But New Japan is trying to grow their footprint in the United States and Canada, but 125 other countries too. What do you remember about these, or hearing, maybe you weren't involved in these meetings with New Japan here in 2007, and why did nothing really ever come of it?
There always seemed to be rumblings with different promotions in Japan, whether it be New Japan, All Japan. We did stuff with Onita's group, FMW, different times, different companies, and they would always, the modus operandi usually would be the Japanese companies wanting to do a large co-promotion show and bring in WWE stars to work with their stars and things of that nature. That was usually the gist of it. At this time, I'm sure there was always the trade involved. Okay, hey, we want to send. You go back in the history, going back to the 60s, of when the promotions would send talent over, young boys over to the States to work in the territories and learn how to work. And then they would go back to Japan, and the publicity from them working in the States would make them huge stars in Japan. Look at this international stars. Oh my God, he dominated wrestling in Amarillo and the Funks and blah, 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 blah. But that was how they learned. Not a bad system, because they would send their young boys and people that they had in their dojos that they felt had promise. Look, Inoki did it. Baba did it. You name every top wrestler in Japan, most of them had a run and had a stint somewhere in the United States. During this time, that was always the way to do it. Hey, we want to send you someone and let them work. A lot of times they didn't care if they worked on top or not. Obviously, they would have preferred that they work with top guys, so that the illusion and what the Japanese press put out was, oh my God, they're huge stars. You didn't have the internet. You did in 2007, yes, but you didn't have the internet back in the day that would be able to print everything and say, oh my God, this is what the hell's going on here. So I'm sure it was just another one of those exchanges, and how can we work together?
That whole concept of sending a wrestler over here to sort of get experience and work with, new audiences and new stars, they called that excursion, right? They're going to go on excursion.
I called it a trade. I don't know. I do just trade. Hey, we're going to trade you this. I'm going to trade you 3 Jeff Hardys for 4 Mudas.
Hey, let me ask, you mentioned, Onita earlier. I'm sure we'll talk about this more in great detail, but it blew my fucking mind to see Onita shaking hands with Vince McMahon in Titan Towers. And I don't know why, but I just see what Onita did in FMW. And I'm like, wait a minute, how in the world would Vince have a meeting with that guy? Do you remember how that came about? I mean, did Vince have any idea that this guy's running around blowing himself up on big shows?
Yeah, that was at the time, that was loosely the premise that Onita was floating out there that he was having a bomb match in the United States. That was not what the meeting was about for us. And it was just to do something with Onita. We did some stuff with Shamrock and Vader with Onita's group, and Victor Quinones did an awful lot with Onita's group. And he also worked with us as well. So this was an opportunity for Onita to come over and see, hey, is there a way to work together? Could we do something? And oh, by the way, have you ever seen this bomb match? Which was absolutely, other than the King of the Hill match, one of the silliest, stupidest things I'd ever seen in my life.
Yeah.
I saw them both live, and trust me, live, it's brutal.
What about the Highlanders? I know we briefly touched on them once before. We talked about how, one of the fellas appeared accidentally at a TNA show. They show him on camera, cost him his gig. I think he was even quoted as saying, I was unhappy and maybe this was my subconscious way of getting myself fired. But it feels like they're only here for a cup of coffee. But when they come out with their look, I just think, boy, this is Vince's dream here. What can you tell us about the Highlanders?
Well, I'll tell you how the Highlanders basically got hired is because they came to their tryouts and they came around and they always wore kilts, and they always, basically what you saw is what you got. That wasn't no gimmick. That was who they were. And Vince absolutely loved that. Everybody loved that. William Regal was one of the guys that came up and said, look, this is who they are. We should do something with them and try them. And because of their dedication to always wearing the kilts, no matter where they were, what they were doing, and everything along that line, that is what got them hired in the first place.
Hey, it's Conrad Thompson. Happy New Year and welcome to another Something to Wrestle with Bruce Prichard. Bruce, what's going on, man? How are you?
Oh man, hair of the dog.
Oh, baby. You have a little New Year's Eve drinky poo? Is that the plan?
You know, I'm going to give you guys a pro tip here, a little bit of advice. And I'm sure I'm going to catch a lot of shit for this.
Yep.
Don't drink draft beer.
What?
Even if it's your favorite. Draft beer has too much air and bubbles and shit that fucking get in there and fuck with your psyche. And then the next day you feel like shit.
Well, I got to tell you, I'm more of a can guy. You know that about me. I know you like the bottle.
Guy.
I like the cans. You know why I like the cans, by the way?
Why do you like the cans?
You can stomp them, throw them in the trash can, fit more in there. There's glass involved. Can't use a compactor. It's going to take up more volume. I just think cans are the way to go.
See, I will even go back to my days of 15, 16 years old at the beach and having to drink Michelob in a bottle. Well, all the rest of the kids are drinking Pearl and generic just says beer. I was drinking Michelob in a goddamn bottle. That's just the way I roll. Even then.
Hey, it's Conrad Thompson. Thanks for checking out the podcast here on YouTube. Be sure to hit the subscribe button and the notifications bell so you get a notice anytime we upload some new content. And go save yourself some money right now. If you're in a 30-year loan or you have credit card debt, it's not a matter of if I can save you money. It's a matter of how much. Find out right now for free at SaveWithConrad.com.